Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
What do you think the role of government should be in a situation like this? Do you think that the government should have the ability to require us to social distance or to shut some things down if it's proven that there's a threat out there that's dangerous enough to require an extreme action like that? Or do you think that, in all cases, they should let grown adults think for themselves? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on government's role in a situation like this.
So, if I were to put myself in this Democrat Republican, I'm definitely more midline libertarian.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like government should be there. Government certainly has a purpose in our society. I mean, it's very, very obvious. It's an important aspect of our society, but I think that I draw the line at civil liberties. I don't want to go. I'm in support of any type of law that, if someone else's actions are endangering those the other, whether it be intentional or not, definitely needs to be looked at case by case, because I don't want to do anything that puts anybody else at risk. That's why I'm not overly excited about having to wear a mask every day, but I've come to grips with it because I'm less focused on the government telling me to do it and more focused on that other person. I don't know how they feel. They could be sick. It's like, just put it on.
Yeah.
So I've come to grips with it. And it wasn't an easy one. It wasn't like I just woke up and immediately when I heard that the government's telling me I've got to do this, I'm right in line, saluting, ready to go.
Yeah.
I try and step out and give it some rational thought of what if there's somebody that's there at the supermarket that's sick. So I'm not dead set on a blanket policy like government should tell us to stay in our houses, or the government should just let us run free will and we go out and do whatever we want. There's an answer in the middle, but it takes thought and it takes a common sense and rational approach. And I think that we miss that, at least here in Nashville. I think that our mayor missed that and may have either consciously or subconsciously let the power aspect drive him in his decision making. I mean, I do know that he held some rallies, things like that. I won't go into which ones he did, but he was doing things that totally contradicted what he was doing to small businesses.
Right.
So for me, that's when I take a hardline stance on it. It doesn't mean that I think people should be able to do whatever the hell they want whenever they want. But I definitely oppose that approach wholeheartedly.
Yes.
I don't think that he put the thought that he should have as a leader into making those decisions. So I may be tiptoeing around your question to some degree. I just don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all answer to that question.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. And a great example of governmental overreach, I think, was what's the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo? Andrew Cuomo, when he mandated that nursing homes had to receive patients that had COVID-19 back into the nursing home. Were you aware of that?
Disaster.
It's insane. That is insane.
Jaw-dropping.
It's jaw-dropping. It really is. And it didn't get much press because apparently he's more left and the media tends to be more left-friendly. And so it didn't really get covered. But I heard this from family. And at the time, I mean, to be quite honest with you, I thought it was just more right-wing people kind of making some things up, or like I just was like that. There's no way. Well, as it turns out, there is a way, and it did happen. And he mandated that privately owned nursing homes had to accept back in patients that had COVID-19, and it's so absurd. And that's just a good example of a governmental overreach. And then you also saw a double standard this summer with, a lot of the protests and the BLM stuff going on, which. Look, I mean, I think there's some things that this country should fix, and but let's not condone. I mean, those the people in like those gatherings are people. I mean, masks or not. I mean, the COVID didn't care whether you were a person that happened to be at church or a person that happened to be in a protest. I mean, it was going to
Exactly.
spread either way. So there really was a weird sort of double standard going on.
Yeah, and imagine watching that double standard as a small business owner, and you
Right.
see that. I mean, it's just really, it's just really concerning. I mean, this if there's there's multiple takeaways from this year,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the biggest ones for me is that I'm just astonished by, like you have termed it, of the government overreach and how they've extended into areas that I never thought in a million years that they would extend into.
Exactly. I heard, I know this was a statement from one of the two main guys in a documentary called No Safe Spaces. Have you seen that? Really, really great. And it's two guys, and I can't remember their names, and they were doing some like a speaking tour in like 2018 and 2019, just about free speech and how America is so different with free speech than other countries. And one of the things that that they were talking about in there is that the innate human desire, the strong inward human desire, is not actually to be free. It's to be taken care of. So when you think about what's happening in America right now, there's this, it does make sense. It does explain some of the mob mentality, some of the things that are going on. Because if the inward deep human desire is to be free, then a lot of this stuff doesn't really make sense. But if it's to be taken care of by your college or your government or your municipality, whatever, your mayor, all of these things, well, then that explains sort of this need for laws and regulations and you tell us what to do. Like, no one really says this out loud, but it sort of explains the quick receptivity to just accept, like, you tell us what to do. There's this deep need where it's like, we want to be told what to do. And it's it's sort of anti-American, but listen, Americans are humans, just like Italians are humans and Brazilians are humans. Like, we're humans. I mean, we like to think we're Americans and we're just free at heart or whatever. And an element of that is true, but we're still human. And I thought that was a fascinating point because I would have thought the kind of the innermost drive of human nature is to be free. Well, as it turns out, no, it's to be taken care of. But we need to fight against that because we're not going to be taken care of properly from other people. We have to take care of ourselves and our families and our community and be contributors to society. So that was insightful to me. It kind of explained some of the behavior that we've been seeing in the last few years that just doesn't really seem to make sense logically. And it's not going to work because you can't. This is where capitalism seems to work. And capitalism can get wonky for sure because you have people with, greed and selfish motives and those types of things. But at least you have the decisions being decentralized more. When you start to really centralize decisions, which you see in a more socialistic society, immediately it just doesn't work as well as a decentralized decision structure. I mean, you see this in companies.
Sure. I mean, and that's, circles back to the when you start to centralize those decisions, it's really easy to think that there's a one-size-fits-all for every circumstance and scenario, and it's just we've seen it time and time again that it's not. That's not the answer.
Yeah,
it needs more thought. It needs to be broken out. It needs to be thought of in each individual segment and how it impacts them. So, yeah, I agree. That's an interesting point of we want to be free versus we want to be taken care of. And that's interesting. That's the first time I've heard of it, but my brain immediately goes to, well, for me, who's the best at looking out for myself?
Mm-hmm.
Is it some guy sitting in his, governor's mansion or mayor's office, or is it me who is constantly making conscious efforts to improve and do better and watch over everything associated with my life? So that's where I would really want to start that thought.
Yeah.
Is who would be more fit to make decisions to take care of myself.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.